We are out by Tabiona, Utah, and we are at the Skyrider Wilderness Ranch with none other than the Gary Young, founder and chairman of the board for Young Living Essential Oils.
Yeah.
He's been kind enough to grant me an interview for the Man Up Project. And the piece we're talking with Gary on is business. There's a very special reason that I've asked Gary to do this part. Where he started Young Living and where it has grown to now. And I'm not going to tell this. I'm going to let this come forth in Gary's own words, because to me, it's nothing short of astounding.
Yeah.
So once you guys hear this story, you'll know why I picked it. So Gary, motivation. I mean, to get where you've gone, obviously takes some sort of motivation and takes some kind of action. When you look at what has motivated you and spurred you into action to get to where you are today, because I think that's part of manning up, is understanding that piece.
It is.
For you, what was that?
Scott, a lot of it for me is intuition.
Okay.
I think in order for any man to step up to the plate and go against the odds, so to speak, or do what other people look at as the impossible, is really, it's all about them and what their dream is, and do they believe in themselves. And I had a couple of motivation factors, and one was I didn't want to ever live like I was raised. I didn't want my kids to live like I was raised. I didn't want them to experience life the way I did. I felt there was more to life. I had a different philosophy, perhaps a different belief, and that was that I didn't believe, as a lot of Christian people do, that God sent me here to be punished. I believe that He sent me here to achieve my full potential. But it was up to me to do that. He didn't say it was going to be easy, but He said it would be worth it. And so there was a lot of factors involved. And so what made the difference for me is I would look at something like the essential oils. When I first discovered them in 1985, the real oils, not the perfume stuff that I got introduced to in 78, but the real oils in Geneva at the university, when I experienced that for the first time, I just felt that there was something here that was a gold mine, that it was something that God had given us, and why it had never been mined, I don't know.
Right.
But that's why I said the intuitive part of it. I just felt intuitive. I didn't know enough to really make an intelligent decision.
Yep.
I just felt in my gut, in my heart, this was the right direction to go. And the opposition was horrible. It was horrible. But once I made up my mind that this was the right direction for me, to heck with everybody else, it was the right direction for me to go in, then I started studying it. I wanted to learn and know everything there was to know about essential oils. That's why I traveled to Turkey and studied GCMS, and I volunteered for years in the fields in France and in Egypt, learning to plant, learning to cultivate, learning to grow, harvest, learning distillation. I didn't feel that I could make a good decision unless I knew everything that I could learn. So part of it was to learn, to research, to study. It's just like, Scott, if you were going to go buy a new chiropractic practice, let's say, you wouldn't just walk in and write the guy a check. You'd want to look at his books. You'd want to look at his client flow. You'd want to look at the fallout. You'd want to look at the retention rate. You'd go through every aspect before you'd decide whether you're going to buy that practice or not.
Right.
You know? And because there was nothing for me to look at, I had to go find it a piece at a time.
Right.
But the blessing of that is that was part of my education. But every time I would go and work in the distillery in France or Egypt, where were the two main places, I'd get more passionate about it, because the intuitive feeling just got more intense. And then when I go and I was studying the GC mass spec and analysis and the chemistry part of it, I get more excited again. So when you're on the right track and you start studying it and researching it, that will convince you that you're on the right track, and your passion will grow equivalent. So it's study, research, learn all there is about it, and then start putting together a plan, And this is where I see people lose it, is they'll get excited, they'll study it a little bit, they'll say, maybe I'll try it, maybe I'll try it. Right. And they'll delve into it for a little bit, and God, this is quite a bit of work, maybe it's not quite what I thought it was going to be. Yeah. And they start doubting themselves and start questioning, and they quit. But when you have a dream, and you have a passion, and you have an idea that has value, and that was the thing for me. It had to have value for the people of the world, not just me alone. I couldn't get passionate about something just for myself. But when I could see the value it had for the world, it drove the passion. And people say, well, Gary, did you get excited? And I said, yeah, I got excited. But there's a difference between excitement and passion. Mm-hmm. Excitement is like, I like to refer to it as the igniter on a propane stove. Mm-hmm. You hold the button down, you strike the match, and the little pilot light comes on. That's excitement. Yep. But as soon as you take your thumb off from it, the pilot light goes out. But if you hold your thumb on it long enough for the gas to get there, then it'll ignite the whole unit. Yep. That gas coming in is passion. And once that passion ignites, now you got a stove you can cook on, you got hot water or whatever, yep. And it'll continue to burn until you turn it off. And so you use the excitement to ignite the passion. Gotcha. And once that's lit, then it's just hang on. But you've got to take it further. You've got to take it to action. And when you go from the study, the research, the identifying of the project and what it is that you're following the path on, and it's all good. But if you don't convert all of that into an action plan, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
So, and that conversion part is where people drop it. Well, Scott, it's some ways, when I think back, it's almost like it's a dream. Yeah. I don't spend much time looking back, and I don't spend much time thinking back, but when I do, because somebody asks me a question or we reminisce like we always do a little bit, it's like it's a dream. Because it was a tough start. Number one, nobody had ever marketed essential oils in the world before outside of the perfume and fragrance and flavoring industry. It had never been marketed. And when I talked to people about it, they just laughed at me. Said, you're crazy, you can't market something like that. And so there was no real support. Even the person that I was married to at that time, absolutely just, no, this is crazy. Yeah. And of course, building a business in the 20th century is not like it used to be in the old days. In the old days, all it took was tenacity and grit, and you could build a business. Yep. But now, all the rules and regulations and compliance stuff that you got to go through, it's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have the money. And so it was just work. And I was a one-man band for 2 years. Take the phone call, package the order, ship it out. Mop the bathroom, fill the peanut bin after filling all 6 orders for the day. Right. Then get on the plane Friday afternoon and fly out to Dallas or Kansas or wherever and do meetings for the distributors, all 20 of them.
All 20 of them.
And I'd generally I'd get out where I could do a meeting on Friday evening. And then I'd take a flight, or a lot of times I would drive. Sometimes Nancy and Eldon would meet me, and then they'd drive me to the next town. So we could do a meeting Saturday morning, and then next town to do a different meeting, or a meeting in a different town Saturday evening, and then another one Sunday morning, and then get on a plane and fly back home to take orders Monday morning. Yep. And it was a challenge, and while I was doing this, I'm trying to build St. Mary's at the same time. And there was no support from anybody around me. You know, I eventually grew to where I had 2 employees after the 2nd year. And they also would just look at me and say, you're crazy, this is not going to happen. I think there's a lot of that sort of thing that goes on in everybody's life. And I really believe that's why a lot of people, you know, will have an idea and mature it to a point of starting and then quitting. Yeah. Because they get the outside feedback, you can't do it, it won't work, this is stupid, you're better to be working a 9-to-5 job. And they give you all this justification. And because we're human, we like other people's approval. Yeah. So our way of getting that approval is by listening to what they say. And that was where it was different for me. I didn't really care what their opinion was, because they weren't doing it for the reason that I was. It wasn't their project, and they didn't know what I was doing anyway. Yeah. So why listen to somebody tell me I couldn't do it?
In that action piece, and I think some people can even get almost, they get past all the other stuff and into that action, and now that's where it becomes hard. Yeah. That's where they get the doubters. Mm-hmm. That's where they get the difficulties of something may not go as they thought it would. Yeah. And what helps you, would you say, when you've been talking, alluding to something I think which is really important, which is that purpose piece. Mm-hmm. And that purpose piece, how does that help you maintain that action? Even when you go, wow, this is tough.
Absolutely. And that's part of life. And I believe, Scott, just from my experience, it comes back to that self-worth. Yep. Because if you don't know who you are, and you don't have a strong ideal about who you are and what you can do, that's when you'll cave in when people start telling you it's crazy. Gotcha. Or you can't do it. Because when you start that action plan, nothing ever goes as it was planned.
Right.
And in many cases, it will go almost the opposite way, as if the universe is telling you, okay, you want to try this, we'll take it on, but you're going to find out it's not all that great. Right. And I look at that, for me, the tougher it got, the more determined I got. Yeah. Instead of looking at it and saying, oh, geez, I can't do this, I look at it and say, watch. Yeah. Watch. Because to me, I took it as a challenge, you know, almost a personal challenge that I can do this. And another part for me that really helps drive me is when I see something like that, I say to myself, and this is justification, perhaps, but it works. So you've got to find what works.
Very true. So, Gary, if you had anything else, any other kind of advice to give men in manning up in business, what would that be? This is your time, your floor to say, men, here's what you need to be doing.
Yeah. The number one greatest thing that any person can do, man or woman, yep, is spend time getting to know who you are and developing yourself. Yeah. Because that is your greatest investment, is investing in yourself. With that, it develops your self-worth, it develops your character, it develops your commitment. And if you're going to man up to anything, if it's just building a young living business, mm-hmm, it takes commitment, it takes dedication, it takes time. And along that process, and Scott, you know it because you've done it. Mm-hmm. Along the way, there's a lot of people saying, you're crazy. Mm-hmm. I'll bet when you sold your chiropractic practice, there were people saying, have you lost your flipping mind?
Yep.
And, you know, what are you going to do now? And all kinds of things are said. The best thing you can do is invest in yourself, trust in yourself, and live your dream.
I honestly I can't put any better advice out there. And honestly, it doesn't, this is the business section. Yeah. But if you do that piece alone, and so many of these things overlap. Yeah, all of life overlaps. Yeah. If you can do that piece of advice right there, investing in yourself, figuring out who you are, moving forward with yourself, the rest of it falls into place.
Yeah.